in typical form for the disrespectful modern fans, they immediately began taking a dump on him as a player, trashing his legacy, ridiculing his competition, and claiming that
John Stockton's stats are fake. I don't care. Okay? Sounds like you care, buddy. Well, stat keepers were told to inflate the stat. Oh, man, here we go again. They're doing the same thing they tried to do to Jordan. Come on, man. All right, welcome back to another After Dark, everyone. Hope you all are having a good night so far. Hope you guys had a good day. So this Johnny Arnett video has been chilling on my wait list for quite a while. It wasn't suggested to me, but I've been wanting to watch it on my own and debating whether I should just watch it on my own or finally do a reaction to it. So here we go. This is the truth about John Stockton. And I don't know what angle Johnny Arnett's going to be coming from here. The truth about John Stockton. It sounds juicy, but as far as I know, there's not any John Stockton controversies or anything like that. But I guess maybe I'm going to learn something new here. As far as I see it, he's top 5 point guards of all time. He's the assist master and one of the greatest shooters I've ever seen who didn't shoot nearly enough. And in my mind, he's a champion as well, even though he didn't win. But, in my mind, there's certain people like him, Malone, Ewing, Barkley, who are just champions in my mind. But leave it to Johnny Arnett. I'm sure he's got something. He's got something for us. So let's find out what that is. As I always do, I'm going to link the original video from Johnny Arnett's channel down below. That's going to be in the description box for you all. So if you want to check out his channel and you haven't done so yet, I mean, pretty much every single time I do a Johnny Arnett reaction, I get a couple of comments on that video saying, new subscriber to Johnny, thank you. So maybe that's you this time. Highly recommend it. One of the best basketball YouTube channels in existence, and also the best basketball intro in existence in YouTube, in my opinion. Anyways, without further ado, everyone, please leave this video a like. It helps out a lot. Let's see what the truth about John Stockton is. I'm kind of worried because I don't have any bad views about Stockton, and I'm a little worried about what this is going to do. Let's find out. Oh, didn't work. There we go. Gotta love when you hit spacebar and nothing happens, right? Johnny, that offer of $5 for this intro is still there. I'll buy it off you. Just kidding.
So fairly recently in the NBA, Chris Paul surpassed Jason Kidd on the NBA's all-time assists list, moving into the second spot all-time. This is an impressive feat, and it's worth appreciating the greatness of Chris Paul, and reflecting on just how long he's been making a significant impact on the league.
Absolutely.
Naturally, after Paul reached this milestone, many younger basketball fans began wondering if he had a shot at reaching the number 1 spot, and that's when they realized that it would never happen, as John Stockton has a career total of 15,806 assists.
I'm glad Steve Nash got up there. LeBron, of course, is in everything. Is it possible 10? Even if you got like 10 assists a game, that's like 800 a season. If he can play like 4 more years and average 10 a game, maybe he'll get there. Keep it with Wemby.
For some perspective, Nikola Jokic has a lower number of points than the number of assists that John Stockton has. As we speak, the gap between Chris Paul and John Stockton is absolutely massive, and in order for Paul to surpass Stockton, he would basically have to maintain his current level of play until he's nearly 50 years old. Just pure insanity.
Wait, 50?
So with this information being
out... Hold on. Is your mathin'? 3,000. Okay. 10 times 82. 10 times 82 is 820, right? So he can potentially get 820 without the playoffs per year. So 3 more years, he can cut that. He can be in 15,000, almost 15. So he's got like 4. Okay. I'd say about 5 years. But yeah, he'd have to average 10 a game, and some playoff runs would help him. Is it going to happen? No, it's not going to happen. But I just want to believe it's possible. Anything is possible
that John Stockton has. As we speak, the gap between Chris Paul and John Stockton is absolutely massive. And in order for Paul to surpass Stockton, he would basically have to maintain his current level of play until he's nearly 50 years old. Just pure insanity. So with this information being out there in the world, what do you think happened? Do you think younger fans took a moment to appreciate the greatness of John Stockton and respect the fact that he has one of the most unbreakable records in NBA history?
Oh no, are you going to try to cancel John Stockton's record, man? Don't do it. Don't do it. If that's what you're going to do, don't.
Of course not. In typical form for the disrespectful modern fans, they immediately began taking a dump on him as a player, trashing his legacy, ridiculing his competition, and claiming that
John Stockton's stats are fake. I don't care. Okay? Sounds like you care, buddy. Well, stat keepers were told to inflate the stat. Oh, man, here we go again. They're doing the same thing they tried to do to Jordan. Come on, man. All right, at least I know you're not the enemy on this one, Johnny. I thought you were the one who was going to come after him and expose John Stockton or some crap like that.
Paul is the actual all-time assist leader.
Come on.
Because, quote, Stockton's stats are fake. Just to be clear, this is nothing new for John Stockton, as he's been taking heat from various YouTubers, fans, and modern analysts for nearly a decade at this point.
He's not overrated.
When I first entered,
he's underrated. He doesn't get enough credit.
YouTube sphere as a creator, the narrative at the time was that he didn't have a left hand. Although it's true that Stockton used predominantly his right hand, it doesn't take much in-depth searching on YouTube for an honest person to realize that Stockton did in fact have a left hand.
They said the same thing about Jordan. Jordan can't go left. Uh-huh. Did you do 5 minutes of research before echoing that in your echo chamber?
Dominant narrative was that John Stockton was the beneficiary of biased statisticians, as many YouTubers and analysts have claimed that Stockton's assist numbers were artificially inflated by Utah statisticians.
It was actually harder back then to get a qualified assist. Way harder than it is now. And I'm not playing this game. I'm not going to diminish Chris Paul and say, oh, blah, 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 because it's easier now. I don't want to do that. I like Chris Paul. I respect the guy. I don't want to play that game and fall into that trap, but I'm just going to make it very clear. Back then, it was much harder to get an assist on the record than it is now. By harder, I mean you had to basically lead the guy to the points. You know, they couldn't take dribbles, take multiple steps, all this stuff. They couldn't hold on to the ball for 5 seconds and you still get an assist. No, you had to spoon feed him back then.
Which is why his numbers ended up being so outlandish. And then, the next predominant narrative was that he wasn't all that special of a point guard because he played with Karl Malone, who was one of the major reasons why those assist numbers got so high.
What the? Magic played with Kareem, didn't he? Oh, I guess I'll cancel Magic next. All right, I'm going to stop pausing so much, I swear. I swear. This video is triggering me. That's all. This video is pissing me off. It's bringing me back to the we done with the 90s thing. Like, it's not my jam. All right, I'm going to sit back and learn from Johnny Arnett. Sorry. Here we go.
Those three negative narratives, the left hand, the fake stats, and the Karl Malone handicap, are the main things I'm dissecting in this video. So sit back and enjoy as we uncover the truth behind the legacy of John Stockton. First off, the left hand. To my understanding, this entire narrative started when a YouTuber by the name of the NBA Storyteller made this video. And in short, his conclusion was basically that John Stockton didn't have a left hand. Allegedly, he couldn't dribble with it, pass with it, drive with it, or even finish with it.
Okay.
At the very least, I respect observant individuals who are able to spot certain trends that others may miss.
I've literally seen him do
but
all
also
those
a
things with
person
his
who's
left.
bold enough to make their claim, even if they know they're going to take heat for it in return. That's what the NBA Storyteller did with this video, so I gotta give him credit for that. because the footage tells us that Stockton leaned heavily upon his dominant right hand.
Well,
The thing is, I think this is a product of the era he played in. Back when Stockton was a young player, defensive players can hand check the ball handler, as they essentially steered the offensive player in the direction that they wanted him to go.
I mean, if you say like a right-hander predominantly uses his right hand, I'm okay with that. I'm down with that. But when you make a blanket statement, John Stockton has no left hand, then I'm sorry, this one image proves that statement wrong. And that's why I always have a beef with this stuff. It's not like they said he's predominant with the right, you know? He tends to go right, because then that's accurate. And as far as I'm concerned, that's accurate for every basketball player who's ever played. They're dominant on their dominant hand. It's not brain surgery. This is just natural. But no, they're making a blanket statement. Michael Jordan can't go left. John Stockton has no left. Like, you make a blanket statement like that, and then obviously we're going to come out and defend it, because the statement itself is incorrect. So make a correct statement, and then maybe we'll agree with you.
Also consider how difficult it is to do stuff like crossover dribbles and various moves with both hands when the defensive player is allowed to be up in your jersey with his hand on you.
Whoa. Guys. What? What? That's a little distracting too. So he's dribbling with the right, he's pushing off with the left, and he's getting kind of violated here. I bet he dunked on his head after this.
Naturally,
Where'd
this
you find that picture, Johnny?
forces the offensive ball handler to be more protective with the basketball, meaning he would often be backing down a player from the three-point line.
Yep.
And the ball is in his dominant hand as a way to be more secure with the rock.
100%.
This wasn't just something that Stockton did, but it was a regular part of Magic Johnson's game as well.
Yeah, that's why they're the back to the ball.
Then there's extensive
Or the
footage
back to the
online
basket.
of Stockton actually doing work with his left hand. So at the very least, he could use it, but he just didn't use it as often. And here's my last and most significant point about Stockton's left hand, which is essentially, so what if he doesn't have a left hand? So you're trying to tell me that he dominated the game of basketball and became the all-time leader in assists with only one hand?
Yep.
And somehow that makes him less impressive?
I say the same thing about Jordan. You're saying, and I get comments about it all the time too. You're saying Jordan could only go one direction, and he's and he's the best to ever play the game. He was that good. He only had to go one direction, and still he was the best we've ever seen. Like, damn, man, everybody else really sucks then, I guess, huh? Jeez. Guess you didn't think that statement through, did you?
If anything, that just makes me more mesmerized by the skill of his right hand.
Yep.
Listen, currently the NBA's reigning finals MVP is a guy who definitely doesn't have a left hand in his game. At one point, Jaylen Brown was the highest paid player in NBA history.
Whoa.
All while NBA fans and NBA scouts knew full well that he was incapable of driving left, dribbling left, and finishing left with any bit of consistency. For goodness sake, look at how bad he is in this layup drill.
Damn.
Are we positive that John Stockton would have been any worse than this?
Wow.
It's also weird when people
No BS. I have a much better left hand than him somehow. No disrespect too, because I really like him. Really good player. Love his attitude. Very intellectual dude too. I'm a fan.
act like a player having one single weakness suddenly destroys his entire legacy and credibility. Even the greatest players of all time had weaknesses in their game. For example, Wilt Chamberlain, Shaquille O'Neal, and LeBron James are all liabilities from the free throw line.
100%.
Guys like Magic Johnson, Steph Curry, and Dirk Nowitzki are subpar defensive players at best. Michael Jordan was a terrible three-point shooter in the first 4 seasons of his career. I could go on and on.
Yeah,
but
first 4 seasons, pretty much, whenever he was shooting a three was like at the end of a quarter and stuff, so his percentage was terrible. But it was not a go-to shot for him at all. He got much better later on.
Is that if these weaknesses of these great players don't fully invalidate their legacies, then why should that be the case for John Stockton? Let's get into the next one, the alleged fake stats.
Oh boy.
The narrative is that Stockton got homebrewed stats for his games in Utah because the biased Jazz statisticians wanted to make their guy look better. Tom Habistro covered some of this when he made his famous critical piece about Michael Jordan's 1988 season. Is there some truth to these home-cooked stats? Possibly, and there's been some examples surfacing online that look pretty damning for Stockton.
I mean, this happens nowadays. It definitely still happens nowadays because if you guys have ever watched any Angry Old Hoops videos, he often will break down the actual, like, he'll see like how many rebounds did LeBron James get credit for, and then he'll actually like break down how many rebounds he got in real life in that game, or he'll do it with the assists too. So this is something that unfortunately is probably always going to be into the game unless we get to a point where humans are no longer tracking this stuff, because all humans are biased and they're flawed. So if we can have like robots do this with like AI or something someday, as creepy as that sounds, it would be a lot more accurate.
The thing is, basketball is an imperfect sport.
I wanted to see that though real quick. I'm sorry. I was talking over it. Let me see what that clip is.
Possibly, and there's been some examples surfacing online that look pretty damning for Stockton. The thing is, basketball is an imperfect sport, recorded by imperfect people.
Yeah.
Not only do I expect there to be mistakes, but I fully expect there to be instances where players are artificially elevated by their supporters.
Yep.
When I did my own video covering Michael Jordan's 1988 season, I found a lot of evidence that specifically some of his steals numbers might have been juiced in some instances. And guess what, guys? I've been doing research for my video about LeBron's assists, which will be dropping next month.
Ooh, I like to be able to say I take a little bit of credit for this one. I forgot about this, by the way, Johnny. When is this coming out? No pressure, but I mean, I'm really looking forward to this. So I want to see what you come up with. That's all. Whatever the evidence shows, I want to know.
And I can promise you in advance that there's some fishiness to his numbers as well.
Mm-hmm.
I don't care who the star player is. If you look hard enough, you're always going to be able to find instances where the numbers were inaccurate in their favor. So that's the first major part of my point, but the next one is maybe even more important. Let's really delve into these quote home-cooked stats. First off, what you need to know is that there is a different statistician for home and away games. For example, when the Lakers play in Los Angeles, their stats will be tracked by their own statistician. But when they travel to Utah, their stats will be tracked by the Jazz statistician.
Yes.
And this is why people make the accusations that certain players benefited from home-brewed stats. So let me give you some examples. For LeBron James's career, he averages 7.6 assists per game at home and 7.2 assists per game on the road. So immediately, some of you might be looking at this and assume that there's some shenanigans going on. But the reality is, general NBA players always play better at home. They have the advantage of the home crowd. They're sleeping in their own bed, they're not jet lagged from all the traveling, and they're present with their families in their routines. For a variety of reasons, it only makes sense that the numbers consistently look better at home. So let's look at some other great facilitators. In Magic Johnson's career, he averaged 12.2 assists at home and 11.6 on the road.
That one makes the most sense because that's Showtime Lakers. That was different. That was special.
Chris Paul has averaged 9.6 assists at home and 9 assists on the road.
Nice.
And then John Stockton averaged 10.9 assists at home and 10.1 on the road. So immediately, the one thing that stands out is that Stockton has the largest discrepancy between home stats and road stats.
So if we cut out 0.8 per every other game, so we're looking at 41 games per 41 games per season, and we're talking about 0.8, so we're talking about let's say 40 assists per season less that John Stockton would have gotten. 40 times, let me do some quick quick math. Like if I think he played I don't know, let's say 18 seasons. So 40 times 18 would be 720. He'd still be winning this by a landslide, an absolute landslide. So you can just get rid of that right there. You can kill 800 of his assists right now, and it doesn't matter.
So maybe there actually is something behind these allegations. But keep in mind that the difference between his gap and Chris Paul's gap is 0.2 assists per game. Not really something that's shaking up the all-time rankings by any significant extent.
Off the top of my head, I'm curious. I have an assumption that Michael Jordan scored more points on the road than he did at home. And I don't have anything to back that up right now, but I always felt like he played better on the road.
So let's just assume that we can only go by Stockton's numbers in his away games. If you adjusted his home game averages to be the same as his road numbers, Stockton still would have finished with around 15,190 assists.
Nice.
Meaning that even without the home game boost, he would still have a lead over Chris Paul greater than 3,000 assists.
I'm glad you did the math.
It would
there.
still be virtually impossible for CP3 to be even close to catching Stockton before he retires. So at the end of the day, this narrative that Stockton is only the leader because of the home-cooked stats is not only stupid, but it's completely asinine to even suggest it. Lastly is the criticism that he's only the NBA's all-time leader because he played alongside of Karl Malone.
All right, well, I guess Steve Nash was only a good passer because he got to play with Amari Stoudemire and Dirk Nowitzki and stuff like that, right? What's next? We discredit scorers who played off the ball because of they had a good person that dished them the ball. You know? Is that what we're gonna do next? Kareem was nothing. Kareem sucked. It's only because he had Oscar Robinson and Magic Johnson passing him the ball that he was any good. Like, how easy and how dumb are these arguments? You know? It's the same crap.
Well, let me start things off by saying that I don't think anyone is ruling out the fact that Malone obviously boosted Stockton's assist numbers.
Yeah, it's a team sport.
I mean, for goodness sake, the mailman was one of the greatest power forwards in NBA history.
Absolutely.
He was a two-time league MVP, and he's the game's third leading scorer on the all-time list.
Yeah, but it's a team sport, and an assist is one of those things that you need two people in order to accomplish. So, of course, they're beneficiaries of each other. It's a team sport. There's an assist and there's a score.
To be fair, who is Kobe without Shaq? Who is LeBron without Wade? Who is Magic without Kareem? And who is Michael Jordan without Scottie Pippen? Every all-time great benefited from some significant help. So to pick and choose which ones to disqualify is completely unfair unless you do it to the rest of the field as well. In his career, John Stockton and Karl Malone played a total of 19 seasons together. And in that time, there was a total of 10 regular season games where Stockton played without Malone. This was back in the day where NBA superstars played all 82 games with extreme consistency.
Show me those assists.
Regardless of the fact that most of these 10 regular season games were past Stockton's prime, he still managed to average 9.6 assists per game without Karl Malone. This means that if we prorated Stockton's assists without Malone to the rest of his career, he would still have about 14,438 assists, meaning that he would have a lead of 2,300 assists over Chris Paul, even without his greatest offensive weapon.
This is some good work you're doing here, Johnny. This is some damn good work.
So basically, the dumb narratives that are constantly regurgitated about Stockton are just that, extremely dumb false narratives.
That shot he just made, by the way, that brought him to the NBA Finals, and then they lost to the Bulls. What a shot. What a big-time shot by John.
If you ask me who Stockton was, he was simply one of the top 2 greatest passers in the history of the game. He wasn't an explosive scorer by any means, but he was very efficient in his contributions, and was always a threat from three-point range. He was an all-time great defensive player, and I'm just now mentioning that he's the game's all-time leader in steals as well, and by a country mile.
He's a tough mofo, too. There's so many stories from his teammates about him, like, dislocating. It reminds me of Kobe a little bit. Of him dislocating something like his knee and then just like popping it back into place and going back out and playing. Like, he was a freaking warrior, this guy.
He wasn't a flashy player by any means. He was smooth and methodical. He was extremely smart and safe with the basketball, as he had an incredible assist-to-turnover ratio. He was a master of angles, anticipation, and communication. He was nowhere close to being considered as an athletic freak. But like other greats in the modern NBA, like Nikola Jokic, Luka Doncic, and Chris Paul, John Stockton didn't need to be, as he was fundamentally sound, skilled, and just understood the game better than 99% of the guys within the league. Sure, he made it to the NBA Finals twice and never won a single championship. But that's nobody's fault other than Michael Jordan. Literally. Nobody's fault other than Michael Jeffrey Jordan.
Yeah, everybody who went against Jordan in the finals has the same story. What's the common denominator there? Can't beat Jordan in the finals. That's why it's not Sean Kemp's fault. It's not Gary Payton's fault. It's not Malone or Stockton's fault. It's not freaking Barkley or KJ or Marley's fault. You know, it wasn't Clyde Drexler's fault I'm drawing a blank here. Terry. You know, it was none of their fault. It was MJ. MJ did this. MJ did this to all of their legacies.
Who kept a lot of all-time greats from winning championships. Stockton led his Jazz to beat a Rockets three-headed monster of Olajuwon, Barkley, and Drexler. And before you say it was because they were old, newsflash, the Bulls and Jazz were basically just as old. Stockton also helped lead his Jazz to defeat the Lakers super team in 1998, who had 4 NBA All-Stars like Shaq, Kobe, Eddie Jones, and Nick Van Exel.
Nick the Quick.
This was a Lakers team that many people expected to represent the West in the 1998 NBA Finals. And even the Lakers themselves made some of those claims throughout that season. And Stockton was the floor general for the team that beat that squad. You can say that Stockton didn't have a left hand, that he had weak competition, and he had a superstar forward that made him look better than he actually was. You're free to have whatever opinion you want. But, you know who I'm listening to the opinion of? The guy who's arguably the greatest defensive point guard in the history of the game,
Yes.
Gary Payton. This is a guy who competed with Magic Johnson, guarded Michael Jordan in the NBA Finals, guarded Kobe Bryant in the NBA playoffs, and he's also a guy whose career overlapped with Dwayne Wade and LeBron James.
He played against Jason Kidd too, and Steve Nash. Just pointing out, like, the other greats, point guard wise, he went against almost all of them.
So he's a defensive legend who's been a part of all kinds of amazing eras. And you know who he says is the most difficult player he's ever had to guard? Yep. That's right.
I've seen it.
John freaking Stockton.
Without hesitation, too.
So based on all that, if he indeed doesn't have a left hand after all, well then I guess his right hand might just be the greatest right hand in the history of basketball.
Yeah. Him and MJ. Oh. Him and MJ can share that. The best right hands ever. Oh, great video. Great video. Great work you did on this one. I came in thinking you were about to attack John Stockton, but instead you were there to defend John Stockton, and I appreciate you for that. Because, man, the way I see it, man, John Stockton's got it bad enough. He had to go to the finals twice with a team that would have destroyed anybody else. The Utah Jazz from 97 and 98 were so freaking good, especially 98. But no, they never got to taste that sweet victory because Jordan and his Bulls. And there has always been a part of me that feels bad for him, because I've always been a big John Stockton fan ever since I was a little kid. So I always felt like he deserved it, and I was hoping he would win one once Jordan retired again, but it just didn't happen. Same thing with Barkley and KJ and Chambers and Marley. Did Marley ever win one? No, I don't think he ever won one either. Hornacek won one from our team. But, like, yeah, all these other dudes, Gary Payton won one eventually, but Sean Kemp didn't get his. There's so many players that I always felt bad for, because I'm like, any other year, you guys could have won a championship, but nope, you had to hit your peak during Jordan's prime, and Jordan just wasn't losing during his prime, not in the 90s. But yeah, John Stockton, he deserves all the credit in the world. He deserves a lot more praise than he gets. And I'm just gonna leave it at that. Chris Paul, shout out to him too. He's always been one of my favorite point guards. It's unfortunate that his body doesn't hold up in the playoffs often. We dealt with that here in Phoenix, and it was quite unfortunate because he's one hell of a basketball player. Smart as hell, good leader. Like, I really like Chris Paul, but he hasn't been able to get it done yet. But it is cool seeing him ending his career with Wembanyama, because that's a cool way to go out, I think. So I hope he stays there and he ends his career there. I guess I'm out of here, you guys. Johnny, great video. Thank you for protecting the legacy of one of the greatest to ever do it. One of those past first guys who was actually the best shooter on his team every year, but his specialty was passing. So that's what he leaned in with. Same with Steve Nash. I've always been a fan of both of these guys because they can shoot at whenever they want and they're damn effective with it, but they choose to pass to other people first. But much like Steve Nash did in the clutch, John Stockton would often be the guy to take the last shot because he has the highest level of accuracy shooting those shots. So I really do enjoy these kind of players, and I miss true point guards. I'm just gonna say it, I miss that being part of the game, a real distributor. Anyways, everyone, I'm out of here. Johnny, great video. Everyone, thanks for watching. I appreciate y'all. Please leave the video a like. Subscribe to the channel if you want more content like this, and hit that bell notification if you want to get notified for tomorrow's morning's drop. And yeah, without further ado, I'm out of here. Have a wonderful, peaceful night. Go tell your loved ones you love them, and be good to yourself, okay? Sorry, I got the hiccups at the very end. And deuces.